Let's take a look at how to actually take all the clips we broke into pieces and randomize and shuffle them back into a randomized video. So we're going to use this notebook, which again will be in both the syllabus as well as in the YouTube notes. We again do not need a GPU for this. We're just going to go ahead and click here, connect. And now we're connected. And then we're going to run this cell again, and we should get this error command that you see here. So bin/bash line 1, NVIDIA SMI command not found. And sure enough, that's exactly what I get. Now what we want to do is let's go ahead and open up our folder tab here. And then what we'll do is we'll connect the drive. So go ahead and hit play on this cell. Connect the drive. And we're connected. So now if I come over here and hit refresh, I should see drive. We'll open that up. We'll then open my drive. And remember that we made a folder in here called Algo Video or Algo Film right here. And inside of here, we have our clips and we have our downloads. So remember, downloads are the files we downloaded either from YouTube or we uploaded via Drive. So we actually really don't need this folder anymore. It might be good to keep just in case we want to rerun some things. But just remember that most of the stuff we want is inside of clips. And in the case of me, I have, well, we'll come back to this file in a minute. I'm going to delete that. We will have two folders. So we had that NYC dumping and we had Groundhog Day, which was the trailer. So what we want to do is we want to take all of the pieces inside of here and recombine them, right? So we've got each one ordered, but what if we sort of randomize that order and just sort of look and see what it produces? So we'll do that here. So these are already uploaded. Again, if you use Resolve to make your pieces, you'll want to basically, in Drive, recreate these folders. So Algo Films, clips, and then the name of the film, and then upload all the individual clips. So this cell here, we can actually just double click on this to close out the code. If you don't want to see the code, you can always, in the GUI part of this, double click, and that closes it. We're going to go in and actually select the paths. Now, one thing to know is for this particular demo, we'll change this for next week, but for this demo, we only want to work with each individual film. The reason for that is that if these have different dimensions, say this one is 16:9 and this one is 4:3, trying to combine them will be kind of messy. It actually will throw errors. So for this, we're going to skip that. Next week, we'll look at how to fix that because there's a couple different ways you could fix that. So for now, what we really want to do is just randomize our individual video files. So the way to do that is we're going to, using this tool, we're just going to grab this folder and we're going to create this. And let's actually go ahead and make another folder in here. Let's just call it Algo Film. Let's make a new folder and let's just call it Random Out. And this just gives us a place to start to save these out. Again, this may be just the first demo we do and may eventually want to delete these, especially if you have limited drive space. You might not want to save all of your exercise that we output, but for this example, it's probably good just to like dump them in a new folder. What I will probably start to do is as we go week by week, I'll actually just build up a bunch of different folders. That way I sort of have a good idea of where things are. If you only have one folder, it starts to get messy, especially when we want to operate on everything inside of clips. So for now, let's just go ahead and save our output path to here. So we'll click on the random out folder, we'll right click on it and hit copy path, and then we'll come over here and we will paste that path in. Next is seed. So the seed value is, basically what this will do is if the seed value is always the same, the randomness, quote unquote, will always be the exact same. So if I were to always use this clips path and this, well, this output doesn't matter, this clips path and this seed, and I always use the same seed, my output randomized video will always be the same. If I switch it between 1, then it will get a different output. And this number could be really, really large. It doesn't actually really matter. Just know that 0 will always be the same video as 0. 1 will always be the same as 1. 1,333 will always be 1,333. Okay, at this point, we can go ahead and hit play on this. I'm just going to change this to 99 for the hell of it. So we'll go ahead and hit run. And we can kind of ignore what's going on here because under the hood, we're actually using a tool called FFmpeg to basically go in, and I'll show this in a second for anyone interested in the code, to go in and actually generate these pieces, and then what we'll get out of it is a text file, which we will then remove when we're done. And that looks like it's finished. So now if I go into random out, I see a folder called combined, and I see a folder called randomize 99. Right now, I'm not really controlling the file name for this. So if you do want to play with different files, you might want to rename this. Actually, maybe I'll change that between now and when class starts, but for the moment, we'll leave this as is. So Groundhog Day randomize 99. Let's just go ahead and download it. Again, video is not easy to play with in Colab, so I generally recommend downloading these files. It's a little bit slow to download from Colab, but it's not the end of the world. So while this downloads, we can just sort of see what happens. So again, this is also where I would probably recommend don't start with a big full feature-length film. It takes a while to pull apart your video, and then to put it back together is also going to take a while, and to download is going to take a while. So this is only 47 megabytes, which isn't terrible. How much is the input video? Yeah, 42 megabytes. So, okay, so it's only a little bit larger. That's probably just like codec stuff. All right, so I'm going to save this. And let's just go ahead and play this in QuickTime. That is quite... What's the resolution on this? Wow, why is that so big? All right, interesting. I'm just going to turn the volume down, and we can just watch sort of what happens here. So I happen to know from watching that trailer that it starts with the clock scene, but in this case, it's starting with something else. And there actually are, I believe, a couple different clock scenes. Yeah. So this is definitely randomized. Now, if I go and run this again, let's actually change our seed number. Let's change our seed number to, I don't know, 102. And we'll run this again. And then we'll download this again. So let's just make sure we grab 102. These will be different paths. And the reason they'll be different is literally because of this random seed. Now, if I set this back to 99, it will generate the exact same video as this. So seed just, it goes into random seeding, which I won't really cover too much in this class. If you've worked with processing or other tools before, you're probably familiar with random seed. But for our case, the reason this is good is in future classes, let's say maybe we want to play with the dimensions that we output the film to, but we like the randomization we have. Like, this allows us to play with other parameters of the video without changing up the clip order. Let's see, we're almost finished here, so we'll download this one. And sure enough, this one, interesting. That appears to be the same. That appears to be the exact same order. Let's see why that is. I bet you I left something in the code incorrectly. Yep, that is exactly what I did. So this will be fixed for you. I set those seed to be static. So now this should be fixed. Let's run this again. And that's why I do demos ahead of class. All right, while this downloads, let me, for anyone interested in the code, let me show you how this works. Anyone not interested in the code, you basically are done now. Just run this cell and generate a bunch of new outputs, download them, and check them out. For anyone interested in the code, here's what I will show you. So the way this works is we are going to set all three of these as variables. So if you want to check out how to set variables inside of Colab, you just use this parameter, and that allows you to make these sort of GUI paths. We're then going to set the input, output together. So we're going to create these paths. Let me download that. We're going to make sure that output exists. If the output doesn't exist, then our code will not run. And then we're going to go through all of the files within our input path. So this accepts MP4. I don't think anything we've done so far is not MP4. Maybe in a future class, we'll actually look at doing something that isn't MP4 like MOV, because it'll be a little bit higher resolution, or like, sorry, not higher resolution, a different codec, or maybe a different output, or I guess MP4s you can also play with CRF. But anyway, let's call it different codec. So maybe you want to work with ProRes, so you always have the highest resolution file. You would want to change this. I might make this in a future case a little bit of a different usage for that. And then what it'll do is it'll print out all the clip paths. This is a nice debugging way just to make sure that it's pulling from the right thing. Then what we do is we're going to actually make a file. So we are going to make a file. Where did I make that file name? Oh, here we go. So we make a file, and we just actually make it at the root level of our folder here, so concat.txt. And this is the best way to work with concatenating video in FFmpeg. You actually have to generate a little text file that gives you all your paths. So we collect all of these we collect all the paths into a variable called clips. And then we use random.choice to actually basically shuffle those pieces. And this allows you to use a random seed. So this seed is being automated here. So again, when we set a different seed value, we get a different random choice. Then we just loop over this new thing called sequence and apply each of those into our text file. So each of these out as an individual line of text. And then FFmpeg accepts a way to concatenate using this, and then you pass in the .txt file and it outputs the randomized variable. So this is actually pretty simple code. I'm actually probably making it more complicated than it needs to be by doing this instead of naming things correctly, but so it goes. But that's pretty much it. That's the code. So again, you can run this 100 different times and download different videos and see which ones you like. Let's double check to make sure that the download for 102 is actually different this time.
We could do Phil. I'm a god.
And it is.
Being stuck. I am an immortal.
There you go. Okay, so that's pretty much it. So for this week, that's really all the steps you need to get to. Now we've got one last video, which will be about how to convert all these files into JSON files. We'll look at that in a second. But for class, I would generally recommend play with this a little bit. See if you find there are interesting moments where you see dualities in the randomization. Like one thing I was sort of hoping would happen, and maybe I just need to generate this a little bit more often, is I would have kind of loved to see if it sort of randomly produced like where the clock face numbers flip over, where it sort of maybe would have put them next to each other or other things. But again, you just need to play with different randomness and you'll get different features. Now, and obviously in future weeks, we'll actually look at how to maybe collect these and sequence them by similarity and shot type and that sort of thing. But for this week, it's just generally play with it, make some interesting things, and get used to cutting up your video using shot detection. So that's it for this video. Again, let me know if there's questions or anything, and we'll get to the last video in just a second.